Welcome to Phonogenics 101, a Riotboy production hosted by Jeremy Gloff. The podcast where people who love music discuss albums track by track. Please hit subscribe, and if you'd like to support this podcast, patreon.com/Jeremy Gloff or Venmo @Jeremy Gloff. And now, on to the music. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Phonogenics 101, my first post-Hurricane Milton episode. It was a little dodgy because I just got power back on Saturday, and I just did a drive through the neighborhood behind me. They still don't have power. I don't know if it's 5 or 6 days later, but I have a lot of friends that live over there, and they're just camping, basically. So it's been definitely a rough time down here in Tampa, but I'm a beast. Like, I just keep moving forward. And we gotta have a schedule to stick to, so we're gonna stick to it. Plus, I wanted to see my Eurythmics friends tonight. So this is our second episode in the Eurythmics series. It's exciting because we have some old friends, some new friends. Jimmy, thanks for signing up for my Patreon. I appreciate that. That pays for the Zoom bills and all that stuff. And thanks to everyone that supports the podcast. And thanks to the YouTube subscribers. Every time I go, the numbers are going up. So someone out there is listening to us. We have an audience.
Excellent.
And I can't help but be like I'm a little snarky. Like, let's just admit it. Like, when I see numbers, I'm like, we got some good numbers here. Because I know some other people that aren't my favorite that start podcasts, and I see their numbers. So anyway, I'll probably edit that all out. No, I'm going to keep it in. Okay. Tonight, we're here to talk about the second Eurythmics album. Who wasn't on the first Eurythmics episode? Okay, so why don't you all introduce yourselves and talk about how you got into this band? John, let's start with you.
Hi, John. I'm in the Bay Area of California. I'm from Atlanta, and that's where I first discovered Eurythmics when I was 13. So it would have been Sweet Dreams, probably because of, not of MTV, but in Atlanta, before we had MTV on the cable system, we had a channel, which I think was, what was UHF was the
Yep.
Not the three majors. It was like not network. So we had this channel called the Atlanta Video Music Channel that predated MTV, and they would play.
Wow.
They had live VJs, and they would play. It was a lot of like what you'd hear on college radio. So it was like new wave, alternative, punk. And I'm pretty sure that's where I first saw Eurythmics, a video, and heard their song. So I was 13, so I was starting to kind of buy records, and probably got the 12-inch. And then when the album came out, I bought it. And Jeremy, are you from the South?
I'm from Buffalo, New York originally, but I did live in Atlanta in 1996.
Okay, so there was a chain called Turtles Records and Tape.
Oh, yeah. I remember Turtles.
Yeah, that's where I first bought that record. I think I paid $6.98 and I still have that copy. So that's how I discovered
Hi there. I'm Tori Amos.
Oops. Tori Amos made some noise on my phone. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome to the podcast. Anything else to add before I jump around?
I mean, that was the catalyst, and I became obsessed, and it kind of like directed how I ended up in my work. I worked in record stores for 20 odd years as a buyer, and then got into the ticketing business. So, I kind of credit my my passion for collecting Eurythmics to kind of like that trajectory.
We did this on the first episode. Is there anything on your want list that if someone has it, you'll pay anything for it?
I mean, the only thing that I would actually still sort of be like, yes, I would, well, it'd be the promo cassette with the J card, because I only have the plain one, and a test pressing of Be Yourself Tonight with the unreleased sleeve.
There was an unreleased sleeve of the album?
They did a photo shoot for it, which has been published in various probably there's on the one of the reissue campaigns, they probably put some of the photos in with the reissue, but they never used the actual cover art.
Oh, I'm intrigued.
Was it better or worse than, or what's your opinion on?
It's definitely more like I appreciated it, but they felt it was kind of too like risque in a way.
I saw Mike get up, so I wonder if he.
I wonder if he has it.
What was it?
No, I don't have it. I think I might have a picture of it.
There's images of it around. They were wearing these bird masks, these sort of geometric, almost like Grace Jones in that video where she's wearing that sort of geometric shaped mask.
Oh,
yeah. I think what Mike is showing is what was going to be
from that. Yeah.
But they're exactly what John's talking about. There was this cover of this photo shoot where there's some video where these weird bird masks, and thank goodness they didn't do it.
Because they were putting them,
yeah.
I remember actually being offered a test pressing of it from someone in Switzerland from Goldmine magazine, and I don't know if it was a legitimate one or not. He wanted $50 for it, and it said that it had uncut proof sleeves, which may have been a bootleg, but that was a lot of money for me at the time.
Yeah.
I think there's some doubt as to whether this sleeve was ever printed as a record. I know the artwork exists. Is that right, John?
I mean, there were so many rumors, like even at record shows and stuff, there'd be collectors that claim to have seen it or held it or, don't know.
I'm intrigued, and I love the cover that was released, but I guess I'll save that for that episode. I want.
Oh yeah.
if I let my mind wander, I'll never come back. Jimmy, we know you from the Blondie podcast. We know you from the Debbie Harry solo. And you jumped on some Janet Jackson episodes and a couple others. Welcome to Eurythmics. What brings you here?
Well, back when I was a roadie for The Tourist, I really got to know Dave and Annie really well. Of course, I was never a roadie for The Tourist.
Crazy.
I say crazy.
I was excited.
12.
No, just like Jeremy said, I was a huge Blondie fan. And Blondie kind of disbanded in '82, which the timing of my discovery of the Eurythmics, they kind of took the place. So the Eurythmics took the place of my favorite band, from Blondie then to Eurythmics. And I'm sure I was introduced by Sweet Dreams. And all I had to do, once I saw the video, it was solidified. I knew this was my band, so I felt at home.
All right, Mr. Jeffrey Dicker, author, artist, friend, songwriting collaborator. What brings you here?
Well, first of all, I know you and I love your podcast. But I love Eurythmics. Huge fan. I never got into the collectibles and stuff like that, but I always bought every single thing they came out with. I love to have all the different songs. So the very first time I heard Love is a Stranger when it was brand new, and the first time I ever heard that song till present day, I could listen to that song like 100 times in a row, and I just love it so much. And then I heard the song Sweet Dreams after that, and it was like they can put out dog shit. I don't care. I'm like a huge fan forever because these two songs are so great, and have always stayed a fan. And so back in those days, we didn't have the internet, so I didn't know In the Garden even existed until like years later. So I thought Sweet Dreams was their first record. So one day I was like, what? I think when the live album came out, I was like, that song Never Gonna Cry Again. I'm like, what's that from?
Aw.
Anyway.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Yes, glad to be here.
And just for those who are just doing the audio version of the podcast, I'm just going to call on the rest of you and just say hi so people can match your voice to your name. Mike, where are you from?
New Zealand.
All right, so we have Mike from New Zealand.
Mhm.
Lynn,
Hillsboro, Oregon. Hi.
hello. Mark,
I'm from Murrells Inlet, South Carolina, on the coast of South Carolina.
and his camera's off, but Nick, are you lurking? We also have Nick. Oh, from our Fleetwood Mac podcast. Nick, introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Nick. I'm a very casual Eurythmics fan, so I think I listened to this album for the first time from front to back last week, and then I did a couple of additional listens just to familiarize myself even further with it. So I'll have a bit of a different perspective from everyone else here.
And I sure hope you keep joining these podcasts because I love calling on you last to get your. And this is what Nick thinks. All right. Well, I'm Jeremy Gloff. I'm from Tampa, Florida. It was 1983. MTV was really just starting to gain its momentum. My mom at the time was remarried and sometimes cleaning houses, but I remember her buying the vinyl for Sweet Dreams, and then she eventually bought Touch. But this is an album that my mom listened to a lot and knew every word of the album. So I got the early pressing of the CD, and then I have the box set with the reissue. I just remember seeing Love is a Stranger on TV, not thinking a lot of it. I was 8. But then Sweet Dreams became a huge hit. And then I feel like maybe Love is a Stranger was re-released because then that song was played everywhere. At least that's how I remember it from my young mind. I love that we have some like hardcore fans here that can tell us all the history. And I freaking love it. You guys are great. Like, this is only our second episode, but I feel like I've known you all my whole life. So let's start. I feel like, so by a show of hands, is this the album when people came into the band? Mostly everybody?
Yep.
So does anybody want to talk about remembering the first time you saw Annie Lennox? I'll go first so that I can shut up. Here I am 8 years old looking at the TV. Boy George and Annie Lennox kind of rose at the same time from what I remember. And, at that time, Annie with the shaved orange hair, was looked at as a masculine presence, which looking back to me, I don't think of it that way. But at the time, Annie Lennox was tilting the gender that way, and then Boy George was more on the feminine side. So there's these two polar opposites. It's interesting because I do love Boy George. Well, I'm not even going to go into a side. Let's stick with this band. Much love for both acts, though. But what a striking video. When you watch the Sweet Dreams video now, many, many years later, the cows in the field, just the boardroom table, everything about it's still so uniquely iconic. Like there's just some magic there that's unparalleled. It's like the background of Lynn's screen, just completely magic. So who wants to start off? Jeffrey, G.
When she ripped off her wig, it's like one of those, like the moment I knew I was gay, I was like, she better work.
How old were you then?
This was 1983, so I was like 8 or something.
Do you remember that? Like, because when she had the blonde hair in the Love is a Stranger video, I thought that was her hair. But then she rips off the wig, she's slicking back. Like,
and
it was almost
like she just like, oh my God, it's so great.
Still, can anything like match that these days? Nothing. Like, it's unparalleled.
Yeah.
All right. So does anyone else want to talk about the first time? Because I feel like for me, this was a life-changing moment. It was like a lens into a world that was greater than anything I ever saw or knew. John.
Yeah. I feel like, I was listening to like college radio then, but so I was already kind of like discovering alternative music and stuff. But I think like just from a visual point of view, like it kind of like made me, introspect and question like what is masculinity, what is femininity, and I just loved the sort of somewhat of the challenge that they were presenting to society, and knowing from reading their, more anecdotally about, what her point of view was, what her, angle of like why wearing a suit, and, that it was sort of a thumb up to, the record industry and the sort of male dominated, music industry. So I appreciate that. But it was so striking that it was, captivating.
Yeah.
And I do remember when they appeared on the Grammys, which was, a big hoo-ha when Annie dressed with the black wig as her alter ego called Earl, and they performed Sweet Dreams. I was sitting with my parents, watching it, and they knew that like this was a band I liked, but they were kind of like, wait, like, even I was like a little bit like dumbfounded because at that point I don't know if I actually had purchased any of because that look was from Touch, from
Right.
Who's the Call, so they were already like one step ahead of themselves in in England, and then in the United States it was all kind of like new and shocking. So I appreciated the sort of confusion that they caused.
All right. Who wants to go next? Mike. Then we'll do Mark.
Oh, okay.
No, go ahead, Mike.
I just want to pick up from what John said about Annie blurring the gender lines and how shocking it was, shocking to everyone. But I remember that was 1983, and the person who was most vocal at that time about blurring gender was actually Boy George. He was very outspoken on that, how we
Yeah.
present ourselves and, what is a man, what is a woman, blah, blah, blah. For the longest time, people continued to be shocked by a man presenting themselves in an effeminate way, and in this case, Annie Lennox presenting herself in a masculine way. Fast forward now to 40 years later, don't you think it's come full circle? I often hear people talking today the very same conversations about gender fluidity and how they present themselves. And I think, I remember this very conversation, I know I'm old, in 1983, and finally, it's taken all that time to somewhat normalize that. So it's kind of like an old conversation, but it's taken a very long time to become much more accepted. And there's still resistance to it even now. But I mean, if someone was to appear on TV now, a woman dressed as a man or a man dressed as a woman, everyone would just go, meh. Do you know what I mean? It's interesting to see how far we've come from there to here.
So I'm going to make a controversial statement, and I'm so tired that I feel like I'm not good at connecting the dots. But it's interesting because Eurythmics and Annie herself has had such a long career now, where she's done so many different things, and they never kind of looked back to this era. Like a lot of times when bands have long careers, they'll kind of revisit something they did a long time ago just to recapture that. And she never really went back to toying with the gender again, and she never really ever talks about what a champion she was.
Yeah.
And that was such a huge thing at the time, but they kind of left that behind. It's not even part of their legacy anymore that anyone talks about. When people think of Annie Lennox, I feel like you think more of Walking on Broken Glass or even the song Sweet Dreams, but you don't think of how it shook up the culture at the time. We think about it because we were there, but I feel like she's not waving that flag and saying, I did this. And she did that. Like she was the forerunner, and I almost wish that she would revisit that a little bit and own it because it was so important to the change of society. You can trace that back to that Sweet Dreams video. Am I being outrageous here? Because I think that's truly a part of history.
Totally.
No, I don't.
I mean, I kind of feel like, she's never positioned herself in a way that was saying like, well, I was, she said, she's playing with gender stereotypes, but not trying to like, make a protest or a campaign about it. And so, I kind of liken her to someone like Katharine Hepburn, who was just like, I'm more comfortable wearing pants, like whatever.
Sure.
And just, and she's often, for much of her career, she's maintained sort of like a very like easy, casual, short hair and, and occasionally, worn a suit. Like even in the, the greatest hits, I think that was sort of a bit of a
Fair enough.
in the Ultimate Collection, that era, and even at times during the Peace album, like with the Fatigues. I mean, just sort of, every sort of album, whether it's Eurythmics or even her solo material, has sort of played with image of some kind, whether it's feminine, masculine,
Or
midi,
or
14th century, whatever.
you look at an album like Bear, and I feel like she made a statement about aging there just as strong as she did about gender on this album. So,
Well, I think she talks about this, and she, if you listen to her different interviews from the last 40 years, depending on when she's talking, the idea of what she was doing was I think it's true. I think she's a very shy person. I think she's a very introspective person. So all of these video personas were just that it helped her perform. It helped her even when she'd go on stage and not be in a guise necessarily, but it let her do something that she couldn't do as Annie Lennox, the person, that she needed this sort of thing, this sort of guise to do that. It would be interesting to be in her mind back in the day. Did she purposely know what she was about to happen? Because she and Boy George already knew each other, because there's articles back in the day where he sort of went through a window or something to see her at a club during the days of the Tourist or something. So she knew him, but I mean that's the beauty of what did she know. And so you go back to I think I told this story the last time, or I've told it on different podcasts or something. I heard Sweet Dreams the first time because my brother ran into the room and he had recorded it for radio, and he said, "You've got to hear this song." And I was just discovering pop music, but talking about this album, and so I was this instant fan from hearing Sweet Dreams. It was like nothing I'd ever heard before. It had all the things that I loved about music. But then I was seeing, we didn't have MTV at the time. I don't think I had MTV for years, in fact. But I would see videos on Friday night videos in the United States. I think it was NBC, and it was 11:30 at night. And it was there 30 minutes or an hour where you'd see videos. And I remember seeing Love is a Stranger, and all my friends at school, or my closest friends at school, loved Eurythmics and Culture Club and the Thompson Twins and all the cool bands from that time. But I remember seeing Love is a Stranger, the video, for the first time. And I would buy singles back in the day. I didn't buy albums. I was a kid. And I went to school and like, oh my God, there's this new song from Eurythmics and it's called Love is a Stranger. I didn't even know what she was saying. I thought she was saying possession when she was saying it's an obsession. So that's what I was trying to explain. But it just from then on, I mean, it just that was it. But I just think on her image, I think it's all about, a persona, and it all is diva, and it's all some artistic persona, but it gets wrapped up in, is it about who she is? And it is to an extent, but there's this Annie Lennox and this Annie Lennox, and so she's very specific about that. And I don't think we'll ever know all those details. Annie's never going to tell us all the details of her working mind.
Well, I have two things to say that I'm going to call on Lynn. Go ahead, Lynn. Go ahead.
So in 1983, I was up and running as a young pup in the entertainment industry, and I'm only I'm 2 years younger than Annie. So when this came out, and I grew up outside of San Francisco, so that was kind of an interesting place to grow up. So I was intrigued, but I want to piggyback on what Mark said. Is she has said that one of the things she wanted to be coming across as an equal to Dave, and she didn't want to be just another pretty girl. And so, and I think that was part of it. I think that she was trying to have a persona that was going to get her to be able to go out on stage and do these things. Because I think as she went on, she pulled the wig off more, she said. But I think that that's why they had those matching suits and all that in the beginning. It is George and George, or there was a British comedy duo. Is it
Gilbert and George? They're artists.
Gilbert and George. Thank you. Yeah,
they dress
that's
alike
what I recall
with the dual suits. They're actually a couple.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay.
Well, something that just popped in my head is a lot of times when you meet somebody, because that's your first time you saw them or your first impression of them, you think that's the most authentic version. Then everything after that's a variation or deviation from that. But I have to remember that there were versions of Annie that existed before that one. So that just happened to be the first incarnation I saw. And that was no different than, Savage with the blonde wig or the diva thing. And even not till this moment when you guys were talking 5 minutes ago did I think, oh, that was just another incarnation, not necessarily the starting point. Because that was just my starting point. But I don't want history or even Annie Lennox herself to forget how important what she did was at the time and how historic it was. So maybe to her it was just another, stop on another depot in the train station of life. But it had a huge cultural impact, huge. So,
and I don't think some of us have said this earlier, I don't know who it was, because you're absolutely right. It did. And you were talking about the Grammy performance, which was February 1984. So Here Comes the Rain Again had been released, but they're performing Sweet Dreams. How big a deal that was. That was a daring thing to do that night, and it was controversial. It was very controversial, but you look at it now and you think, really? Was it? But it was. And so you're right. I mean, you can't discount what they were doing, the cultural impact that it had, even if they didn't really personally know, and maybe they did, that it was going to, but it did. It changed things for a long time. So I think that's a smart thing you said, Jeremy.
I wonder if even to this day, Annie realizes how important it was that she did what she, because I feel like she's just, I don't know her, and I just feel like she's always just moving forward and not really like a reflective person. But I hope there's a moment where she says, the way the world is now, I had a piece. What I did was a piece of that. Even, the non-binary being more accepted. All that, I say a lot of it some of it goes back to the Sweet Dreams video and everything that happened during that era. I never saw anything like that before. Of course, she had Grace Jones back then bending, the gender norms, but
David Bowie.
But Annie was just, I guess, would you say a little bit more mainstream at the time? Grace didn't have a number one hit.
Yeah.
Like Sweet Dreams really, went through pop culture.
Yeah, the video was a sensation. I mean, and so people that may not have ever dealt with gender bending were suddenly forced to deal with it. I mean, it's pretty awesome.
Right. In Middle America.
And it was but it was very non-threatening because has there ever been one person in your entire life you've met that doesn't like Sweet Dreams? Yeah. I've never met one.
Well, I mean, that song is so infectious. It's like what you're saying. You were sort of forced to pay attention to it.
People who like the wrong version of it. Like some people who've introduction to it was Marilyn Manson.
Yeah.
I like Marilyn Manson to some extent, but
they used to play that version at the castle in Tampa, and I'd go off the dance floor. I'm like, I only dance to the original.
And there are plenty of people who think that is the original too.
Oh, well. Around the same time, there's a goth version of Like a Prayer. And too bad our friend Sharon isn't here because she'd be able to weigh in on all this. Now, Nick, I'm going to call on you. Being a younger generation, how does this all sit with you? Like looking back, is it evident that this was a cultural movement? Can you feel that at all, or did you not know that?
In terms of being a cultural movement, I think that it's in terms of gender norms, I think that's very much salient, especially now in political discourse. I won't get too much into that. In terms of the cultural impact that Annie had in particular, I'm not sure if it's particularly recognized by younger generations, but it's certainly felt nonetheless.
Right.
And she certainly helped pave the way for just more understanding on the issue. Even if people might not be super familiar with her work, it's certainly greatly appreciated, everything that she's done nonetheless.
All right. Well, any other general thoughts before we move on to the album cover is the next thing we're going to talk about.
I mean, this is something that kind of plays into the, idea of not just gender, but also sexuality is the thing that really fascinated me. The deeper I got into, investigating and learning and researching about Eurythmics, because I wanted to know everything about them, was when I started discovering like some of their side projects or the music that they listened to during that time. And one of the things that really fascinates me that I think has not really been really discussed much is that if you listen to some of the singles from both In the Garden and Eurythmics, but some of the B-sides, there's one particular B-side which we can talk about when we get to the actual A-side track, but they were toying with like concepts of S&M and bondage and stuff like that with leather. There's a song called 4-4 Leather, which I've always found very, okay, what were they doing at this time? And they were working with other artists who were definitely more not in the mainstream. And that's one of the things I really love about them, is that they kind of, cross the bridge to like so many different, not just genres, but also like, I guess like subcultures.
Right. Jimmy.
Yeah. I just want to say that I think that Annie really helped redefine what is beauty in a woman. Typically beautiful women had long flowing hair or what have you, and she really challenged all that, chopping off her hair, dyeing it orange, and dressing in male clothing, but she was strikingly beautiful. So she helped really redefine what you look at and define as beauty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So the album cover for the Sweet Dreams, the album is Sweet Dreams, parentheses, are made of this. This really set the precedent for the way Eurythmics stylize themselves for the whole career. There's always some like geographical or geometrical shapes, interesting fonts. You'd often find little stars or little boxes on their albums. The inner sleeve had stills from the Love is a Stranger video. I don't think the RCA Records planned on this to be a huge hit. I remember thinking that the cover just felt a little budget, and then it turned into be a huge album. Of course, by the time of Touch, you had some nice glossy packaging. But what do y'all think of this album cover?
I love anything that Lawrence Stevens designed, and so he's brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, the in lesser hands, you would have taken that picture, that's little Polaroid in the middle, and that would have been the album cover. But he had this brilliant sense of what to do with it. And if you don't know his story, it's a brilliant story, because he was a young guy and he was a designer, and he walked into RCA and he wanted to design record sleeves. And he walked into RCA and told the secretary, whoever he said, and whoever, I forget the exact story, but Dave and Annie were in an office discussing Love is a Stranger. That poster behind Mike designed. So that's how he got a job, starting to design for Eurythmics. And he's done it even on with Dave and Annie's solo things often. I mean, he's an incredibly successful designer, and you know, it was all happenstance. And I just love those kind of stories that he walked into this office at the right time and met these two people who were themselves trying to, you know, make the reality something. But that the cover is fantastic. It's so minimalistic. Is that and the bars and it's
To
great.
me, the word iconographic or iconic is used so much these days, but to me, that album cover is iconic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel that the way that Eurythmics music was packaged is such an important part of the story, because it really is from Sweet Dreams. I found out about In the Garden later, and I love it. It does exist, but to me, this story started with Sweet Dreams. The way this album cover drew touch, then even 1984, then Be Yourself. Like, there's just a story of a thread that runs through the way all these albums are packaged, and having. She was such a shocking image at the time. And just to put it really small in the middle of the album cover, but with the shaved head, but still the feminine glove in the heart. So there's even such mixed things. Go ahead, Mark.
And the mask.
The mask, which came back the next album also.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And she looks naked, her bare, and this, of course, what I've always wanted, we've never got, is a special edition in a candy heart box, like she's holding, the Valentine's handy, that's a special edition. And how that's not been done is beyond me,
And the whole thing just felt so effortless. I feel like they didn't sit there. I feel like we probably talked about this cover more than they strategically thought about it. I think they just were being themselves and doing the thing. Let's take a picture. He designed the cover. I feel like these days everything is so curated to the point of like the life's taken out of it. But I feel like this is just so organically, genuinely sincere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it wasn't 20 people in suits trying to think of a great way to market.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was two people in suits.
Yeah, two people in suits. Len, you got that right.
And Lawrence.
And Lawrence. Three. All right, three.
From a design perspective, it kind of mirrors the content of the album because it's both kind of cold, clinical, but also has a softness and kind of a so it's like, I was thinking it's very kind of industrial and brutalist meets like neoclassical. Like it has elements of both, which I feel like their music does too, especially on that album when you have synths and strings all blended together.
Yeah.
Does anybody else, like, I pair up Sweet Dreams with Kissing to Be Clever and Touch with Color by Numbers. Does anyone else? Okay, it's not just me. I do not pair 1984 with Waking Up with the House on Fire, though. That's where it ends. Okay. Any thoughts on this album cover or anything before we move into the track by track? Okay. Yeah, Mike.
Just a couple of variations on the album covers. So this is what I love is the gold bars, but in different countries, the bars are a different cover, a different color, a different shade, which I find interesting. And in Australia, this is the only country I know of, issued the album in this gatefold sleeve like that.
Oh, wow.
And so you have this and also the insert that we're familiar with. So it's kind of like double dipping. You've got the insert and then you've got it all printed again on the inside, which is really cool. I love that. And let's not forget the picture disc, of course, which was stunning as an album cover.
Oh,
yeah. And another one that's been floating around, I'm pretty sure it's a bootleg, but whatever. It was made in Taiwan.
Oh,
and it's just all the images that were used on the insert. So
how interesting. I've never seen that.
Oh, it's kind of hard to find, but it's not a super collectible item. Yeah, but I just find it interesting seeing the little variations of the album sleeve, which is just each one is classic anyway.
But if
I
you,
feel like
Are those things worth a lot of money?
Uh,
A lot of money?
Not really. This one's hard to find. You'd pay maybe $50, $100 for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like the picture disc would have been the safe way to go with the album cover. It's a beautiful picture disc, but I feel like, you know, in other hands, that's how it would have come out. But we got this, and I absolutely love it. And I love the variations. Please jump in with them every possible time. Any other thoughts?
Actually, I saw a picture disc just a couple of days ago, this picture disc on eBay, and it was only £20. So it's not that expensive. Yeah.
All right. Well, the album opens. Last time we heard from them was the song Revenge. So if you're listening to the whole discography in order, Revenge is the last thing you heard. And then
Revenge from In the Garden.
Yeah, In the Garden. Not to be confused with Revenge Part 2, which I did listen to after the podcast, and I kind of wish I hadn't. But anyway, Love is a Stranger, opening track, one of the best songs of all time. They used to play that at the Castle. I feel like, in Tampa, I loved the 2000s because you had that electro clash like Fisher Spooner and what were the other bands? I'm tired. I can't. Goldfrapp. But then they would play like the 80s along with it. So it was a great time to go out dancing. And Love is a Stranger was played a lot. But I remember seeing it in 1983 on Friday night videos and just being absolutely mesmerized. Going back and listening to the song, in the Garden, we had more of a full band sound. You can go on Wikipedia and see the story of the album. Dave and Annie did it in a warehouse, cheaper equipment, very lo-fi compared to other stuff, but one of the most iconic albums of all time. So where do we even start with Love is a Stranger? Who wants to start this one off?
You would
I'll go.
think.
John?
Go ahead, Lynn.
Perfection. Really. I think I love this song more than Sweet Dreams. I mean, this is one of my all-time favorite songs.
Yeah, me too.
I have to listen to it. I think, was it who said once they listen to it, they have to listen to it over and over? Was that you, Mike?
No, it was
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey, sorry,
Yeah.
Jeffrey. It starts out, if you're not, the first time you hear it, you think it's kind of light, and then you go into it sounds super sinister. And then I have to always say, never have Dave's grunts, never have grunts been so well placed in music than Dave's grunts in Love is a Stranger. I was like, this is an odd one. I love this song. It's perfect.
I feel like the only possible rival could be Big Love by Fleetwood Mac. Maybe.
Oh yeah, that might be. Yeah, that
Might be.
Okay. Yes, that might. Well, that's two sets of grunts.
Yeah, true said. Jimmy, you had your hand up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say. This one is sheer perfection. And I absolutely love the way they doubled Annie's vocals on this track. I mean, when you really listen to it, I mean, it's just, to think of how it was recorded, when you listen to it, it just sounds like an extravagant production because they really utilized the technology that they had. To this day, artists wish they could sound like that.
Yeah.
I just think that it is like literally perfection on vinyl. So
And remember how wispy some of Annie's vocals were on In the Garden? She comes here fully formed. Like, it's menacing. It's ethereal. I could just list word after word after word. The song is everything. Plus, what a hook. Like, if you want a good hook in a chorus, here it is. All right. Anyone else? Love is a Stranger.
I think in the 80s, it seemed like a lot of times, a hit single would be the lead track. At least, coming from the US, where it's like Sweet Dreams was the first single, not Love is a Stranger. You kind of expected, lead tracks to sometimes be hit singles, I think, on pop albums. But I'm glad that it's the opening track and Sweet Dreams is sort of the beginning of the side B, because it really does. The more I think about the album, even though it isn't necessarily presented as a conceptual album, it really almost kind of does set the stage for it being conceptual, because it's more like the sort of, peaks and valleys of emotions. And Love is a Stranger really kind of presents like this album is, gonna take you through the ringer. And I think put you through the ringer. So I think it's a great opening track. It's always like surprising when I hear it, when I listen to that album and that's the first track. It always is like, very uh, um, pleasing to hear it start the album.
Yeah. Do you remember the little cartoon that was in newspapers? Which may still be Love Is ...
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was like a one cell cartoon.
Yeah, one block thing, but I mean, this is, I always think about that, and love is ... and and then she's going to go through the gamut of what it is. But I always think too that this was the second single, especially in the US. And think about those two songs and how they were made. And Sweet Dreams, basically almost a repeat, the whole song. And think about how this song starts and what a lot of people, especially probably radio DJs, must have thought. She repeats the first lines, on those first opening seconds. And so did people, when they first hear it, did they think, what are they going to do this again? And then, of course, she goes through and she gets to the second, I guess you just call it the second verse. It's hard to tell what verses are. But then she goes through this gamut, this litany of what love is, and it's just this string of consciousness, and it's everything about it is this crazy song that no one has ever recorded before. It's so much like what they were doing at the time. Nobody did a song in the way that they would do it, especially those two singles that people knew about, but I just always thought about at the time that it followed that. And did people think, oh, she's just going to start repeating this over and over? But that's not what they were doing.
Just introspecting on it, the fact that she worked the word zombie into the, and it makes me really, now thinking about it, I'm like, was she talking about Dave because of their volatile relationship, or was she talking about another, was it a general statement on, how being infatuated with somebody is, or was it, was there somebody at the end of that, lyric, that song that she was focusing on? And, it could be it could be biographical, or it could be, a little bit of both. Obviously, the video presents it in a way of like obsessing on, stars, celebrities. It almost seems prescient, because having been in the fan club and collectors and stuff, there's, I've met some fans who were pretty obsessive. I mean,
you talking about me again?
No, the ones that I've met, there's a couple that I used to talk to that were almost borderline irrational. Like traveled, followed them, found out what hotel they stayed in, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, okay.
And let's not forget, Annie doesn't just say, like, she really says zombie. Like her emotiveness in this, whatever word is. It was interesting because Jeffrey will appreciate this. When I think of those opening measures, it kind of reminds me of Prince Dirty Mind a little bit. The same pulse there. Mm-hmm. Just that, and that was 2-3 years prior to this.
Yeah, when this song first came out, I was like instantaneously obsessed. I loved every part of it. Her vocals are great, the music is great, the video is great, the lyrics are great, they're unexpected, just like her voice is heavenly. Like every part of the song is just freaking great. And to think that, like, to create this and Sweet Dreams in the same setting, that's like your dream career, and then they just kept going. It's
right. Does anyone else when they were on the dance floor do the thing with the gloves like in the video to the song? Because I always did.
And I've listened to this song like obsessively for 40 years, or yeah, 41 years now, I guess. And I have never gotten sick of it ever. There's songs like Sweet Dreams. There's been periods of my life where I was like, if I never hear that song again, I'll be happy. And just because they played it so much, but I have never gotten sick of Love is a Stranger.
Mm.
It's always fresh.
Always.
It's always fresh. So
Yeah.
let's go to Nick. Nick, did you know this song before tackling this album a week ago?
Yes, I was familiar with this album,
Okay.
or this song, I should say, and I loved it then, and I still love it now. This was, I think, the third single on the album, and it did chart initially, but it's one of those rare instances where on second run, it was actually far more successful. I think it was number 6 in the UK, it could have been number 4. And then it did break into the top 30 off the heels of Sweet Dreams, the title track. I think the instrumentation's great. I love the synth glissandos. It's a very effective use of grunts as well. I think they use some sort of reverb unit to put some even more depth into them, and it's super effective. I love one point in the song where I think there are 4 consecutive grunts, maybe around the 3-minute 20-second point. They serve as nice accents on beat 1. It's brilliant.
All right. Do you have any other thoughts on Love is a Stranger?
It's interesting about Love is a Stranger that the record company had released it in the US before Sweet Dreams peaked at number 1.
I read that it was the same week it was at number 1 that was released.
Yeah. Oh, maybe it was I mean, you kind of wonder, like, okay, because Sweet Dreams stayed at number 2 for what was it? Was it 6 weeks?
In the UK, it hit number 1 in the US, though.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about in the US, that it was at number 2 in the US for like 6 weeks or something to that effect, and then hit for 1 week. So it was almost like that the record company, like, okay, is it going to keep going? And it stayed in the charts for a very long time. It didn't just collapse once it was number 1. And I mean, that song was out for a very long time, but that the record company was already pushing Love is a Stranger even before Sweet Dreams had completely peaked. I find completely fascinating.
That's awesome.
Go ahead. I was going to say it is a very interesting strategy to almost cut off the life support for a song that's at the top of the charts by kind of usurping it almost, but it actually worked to their advantage in this case.
Yeah. I feel like 83, 84 was such a turning point for music because the same exact thing happened to Madonna. She had like a version in the can ready to go months and months, but then Borderline at the last minute became a hit, and then Lucky Stars. So that album had to get pushed back almost a year.
Interesting.
So, Mike.
So at the risk of going off on my own tangent again, if you don't mind, when Love is a Stranger was released in the USA, initially, from my understanding, it came with this sleeve here.
Okay.
Was quickly replaced. This was on 12-inch and 7-inch. And then everything came back to this sleeve. It was sort of mainstreamed. So I find that really interesting because back in the day, record companies weren't so global. They would issue things with unique pictures and stuff like that, which I find really fantastic. And there's another interesting one I find, that's the French single, the 12-inch
the blue lines. It has the blue lines.
Blue lines. But what I love about this is they've got here, Love is Stranger. And I love that. It's really cute. Yeah.
What did you say? Love
is Stranger.
So no
No A. And I love the way that the German sleeve, the German 7-inch was issued with this little sticker, which is really
I've never seen that. I've never seen the sticker. Oh wow.
Yeah, well, that was issued with the 7-inch, but this 7-inch was also issued on pink vinyl, right?
Yeah. Wow. Never had that. No.
So that's really cool. And the Japan one again was unique as well. So that's unique.
Yeah, that's great.
So is the Holland one. And I just love seeing all these variations. And then of course you've got the picture sleeve, picture disc. So that was a really exciting time for collecting, and I just love all the variations. So I just wanted to, I can't say any more about the song. The song is perfection. Never get tired of it. As Lynn, I think Jeff said, you can listen to it over and over again. It's flawless, absolutely flawless. Yeah. There is a story about the one that got away, though. There is a cassette single of Love is a Stranger.
There's not.
There is.
Oh, what?
I saw it about 5 years ago on eBay. It's
Oh,
not
wait
a
a minute.
picture. It's not a picture. It's like a BMG RCA promo with a type font on it. I saw it on eBay and it was £5. And I thought, oh my God, am I going to bid on it? Oh God, I just can't be bothered. I'm so tired. The next day it's sold for £5. And I'm like, oh,
No.
yeah. So the one that got away. It does exist, Mark. Yeah.
Wow. So it's kind of like a promo cassette.
It's just a cassette, in a plain old empty. There's no sleeve, and it says "Love is a Stranger." It's got type font on it, RCA. Love is a Stranger.
Oh, that was that was the best $5 I've ever spent.
I know.
I'm joking, I'm joking.
Oh
It
my
wasn't
gosh.
me.
Sounds like a radio promo.
Yeah, radio.
Something like that. It does
Yeah.
exist. Yeah.
So do we
That would
discuss
be probably.
do we discuss B-sides on this podcast? Or?
Not till the end. So we go through the albums track by track, then we'll do the
Okay.
B-sides.
Groovy. Yeah.
All right. So when you're listening to an album, how the hell do you follow up a song like Love is a Stranger? Well, to me, this is one of those albums that just keeps on trucking. I've Got an Angel. This kind of set the template for throughout their career. They would have songs that just kind of repeat 2 or 3 lines and then have a weird refrain. I remember like when they had some later albums, and I thought some of the songs were kind of lazy, that there weren't a lot of lyrics. But then when I was trying to say, I'm like, listening to I've Got an Angel, I'm like, oh, they always did this. So like, Put the Blame on Me from a later album, I'm like, oh, that's just the same thing they did on Sweet Dreams. They just didn't have a lot of words. What was the other song from Savage that was kind of like that?
Heaven.
Heaven, yep.
Which is one of my favorite Eurythmics. I think Love is a Stranger and Heaven are my 2 favorite Eurythmics songs.
Really?
Oh, that's cool.
There's another song, but oh well, I'll look it up. But anyway, I've Got an Angel. We have of some flute. She's saying I've got an angel, then they're talking about killing somebody. So they do a very lot. A lot happens with very little.
No, they're talking about killing time.
Killing time.
Yeah.
Time is time to kill.
See, I always thought it was like it's time to kill somebody.
No,
We don't know. Do we know? Have you talked to Annie?
No, it's time to kill. It's killing time is what I thought.
Whatever it is, it's one of my all-time favorite Eurythmics songs. Absolutely, positively adore I've Got an Angel. 2 minutes and 14 seconds of bliss, I believe it is.
I mean, her voice is heavenly. I feel like this album goes from heaven to terror. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the bass synths are so deep. The harmonies, I absolutely love this song. And I feel like for this album, I'm not even going to waste our time with a thumbs up or down. Because I give them all thumbs up. If anyone has a thumbs down, though, bust in and you won't be judged. It's okay. I've Got an Angel. I know that other people have things to say. Jeff.
So this song to me only suffers from how do you follow up the greatness of Love is a Stranger? So it's like I don't like this song as much as I would. If this song was like the first single or the first song I ever heard by them, I would be like, oh my God, it's amazing. But compared to Love is a Stranger, I'm like, but it's not because I don't like it. It's just, it's so hard to compete with that. Whereas like Sweet Dreams at least kind of does that, you know? Okay, that's my piece.
Hi, Jimmy.
Yeah, as this crew will get to know, I'm heavy into song placement on albums, and I don't know that it lives as a second song in my universe.
Wow.
I think it's a great song. It's a solid album track, but as the follow-up to Love is a Stranger, I'm going to kind of echo Jeff. It suffers from that direct comparison to what you just heard to my ears. So I think it's great, but I'm not sure I would place it where it is.
I feel like it's definitely dark and not an ounce of commerciality here. The two songs I was thinking of were Put the Blame on Me and Take Your Pain Away. But anyway, back to this album. Other thoughts on I've Got an Angel?
Well, it's another Angel song.
Oh.
Yeah.
How many Angel songs are there? 3 I can think of.
I've Got an Angel, There Must Be an Angel.
Yeah. I feel like there's another one.
Well, solo, it's not part of the title, but Precious.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was not thinking in the title. I was just thinking lyrically.
But then the tourist have Angels and Demons.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's a theme she goes back to. I kind of disagree on a good follow-up on the album. I think vocal delivery, it's somewhat similar to Love is a Stranger in the sense that she's going all over the place with it. It's so high. I think that's the cool thing about it. If you've not heard their version, and it's a BBC recording,
Yeah,
sort of live, sort of in the studio, not really live, and it starts out with a little bit of I always kind of think of it as almost a disco guitar, just a little bit. I don't even know what you call it. But if you've not heard that version, you can find it on YouTube. Just look up BBC Eurythmics session. It's a killer. It's so good. And it was totally different live. You know, a totally different vibe on the Sweet Dreams and tour. You know, a lot of animalistic jungle sort of wails from the background. Anyway, again, love it.
It's interesting.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
It kind of mirrors Sweet Dreams in a way because it's very short on lyric, but like, you know, it has this very chant-like meditative kind of mantra type, you know, construction to it. I mean, the lyrics, I mean, I'm reading the lyrics right now and there aren't more lyrics than there is in Sweet Dreams. So kind of, you know, it kind of makes me feel like, you know, a lot of what they were doing in the studio and what Annie was going through in her head, that in some ways, like, this is almost like purgative. And it was just like, you know, it sounds so professional and clean and like well produced, but thinking about like what was she going through, like sitting in that studio, you know, kind of having you know, depressive, you know, episodes and things like that. So I actually think like a lot of what she was going through personally was like, you know, it was coming out in these, you know, chants and meditations and, you know, and Dave just knew what to do with it.
John, I think that's brilliant. I think that is really, I think that's a brilliant concept on that. Where, and you were kind of referred to Sweet Dreams, where she was having that, and it's famous, you know, she was just in the floor, like, there's no point in this. We can't go on with getting nothing. And you do kind of get that out of the I've Got an Angel lyrics. The time is time to kill. And she's sitting there trying, what's going to happen? I'm doing all of this stuff and nothing's happening. Almost suffocating. Interesting. I
also feel like this is the introduction of like Annie Lennox using her voice as a percussion instrument, which she did a lot. You know, a lot of the how and that. You know, that's something she really did a lot effectively. I love it. Lynn, you had your hand up.
Is one of those kill, time to heal? You know, she repeats it so many times. Sorry, I put a cough drop in my mouth.
I've never heard it that way, but I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, I was listening to these multiple times, and I thought at one point, gosh, she's saying time to heal.
I don't know.
Something to listen to.
So, Nick, what did you think of this song? You didn't know this song before a week ago, did you?
I did not, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. It's difficult to follow up a song like Love Is a Stranger, so they went in a completely different direction. It's very percussive. I noticed that there was a lot of hard panning of the instruments. You have the block chords of the synthesizer on the left channel. Then you have these very deep tom-toms, the synth bass, cool percussion effects on the right channel quite a bit, and then vocals are closer to the center. I did notice that the kabasa makes a return, and there's also a vibroslap. It could either be that or a jawbone. It's essentially this instrument right here.
Oh,
Yeah, that is the sound. Oh wow.
That is the
Yeah.
sound, yes. I enjoyed it quite a bit. There's a portion, I guess you can call it the chorus, where she kind of evokes the voice of Grace Jones. I know that she was mentioned earlier, especially when she gets very deep and guttural, and then she gets into the higher register. I like that she kind of alternates between her vocal timbres. She's very expressive, and I think that the production on this album and her vocal performance just does this album far more favors compared to In the Garden, which I still enjoyed, but the vocal performance really elevates this album in particular, and this
Wait.
song for that matter.
she's hitting some really high notes there. And I also feel like had this album been recorded in a very professional studio, it might not have had the same magic. I feel like that earnestness just really fit the music perfectly. Does anyone have any further thoughts on this song before we move on?
Yeah, wasn't this album recorded kind of in an attic? It was called The Church, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And at that point, it wasn't even complete based on the articles I was reading.
No, they weren't in the church yet. They were in a picture framing factory.
Yeah.
They were in a tiny little
Yeah.
portion of a picture framing factory, which helped, I think, with the acoustics actually. Yeah, I think the idea is that I think they, as much as it was difficult, I think they probably were having a great time, because they were just doing all this on their own, with what you all just said, that if it had been in some giant studio with, a 64 track board or whatever, it wouldn't be the same. It's magic because they made it magic, because they didn't have any choice. It was them playing around, trying to figure things out.
It's probably fun for them because they were writing different kind of songs they had never written before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm sure it was just a blast through the angst and pain, just like the best art.
Yeah.
Well, the next song is a cover, which wasn't the norm. Wrap It Up, made famous. Wasn't the Fabulous Thunderbirds the one that did the single, which was terrible? I thought their version was awful. Really make this song their own. Who did the original? Does anyone know?
Sam and Dave.
Sam and Dave.
Yeah.
But to me, the only reason I knew it was a cover was by looking at the songwriting credit. It fits so seamlessly on this album. Jimmy, I'm interested to hear where you. We'll get to that. Clearly, Annie's having a great time. Was that live bass on this song? I feel like there was some live bass here and there on the album.
Mostly hear synth bass on this song in
On this
particular.
one, what's the one that has the live bass? Is it later on in the album? Maybe This Is the House?
Possibly.
Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of. But anyway, Wrap It Up. They make this one their own. She's very spirited. I wonder what made them choose to do a cover when they had so many originals. Jimmy, start it off. I see your hand is up.
To me, this is like a precursor of what we're going to hear with what would I lie to you. It's like, it's like when I listen to Wrap It Up, I'm like, okay, this is where Would I Lie to You and that sound kind of comes from for this band.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
The only problem I have with it, as Jeremy knows, is placement. But I think it's a very fun track. And great job.
I think this would have been a better track too.
What'd you say, Jeffrey?
I think this would have been a better track too than I've Got an Angel.
Okay.
Interesting.
Can I say something controversial?
Yeah, of course.
This is the one song that I do not like at all. In fact, I skip this song a lot. The reason is because when you listen to the song itself is just chaotic. to me, it's really jarring. There's no real melody as such. And I often think that if Eurythmics were going to include a cover on their album, Satellite of Love would have been a much better choice because I think that is such an incredible song.
Yeah.
Lou Reed's himself said at the time that he'd never heard a better cover of that song from anyone. So that's the endorsement from the man himself. That being said, Wrap It Up live is amazing. It's incredible. There's recordings of Annie just goading the audience into this massive, powerful build up. And I think at one time she says something like, get up off your fucking feet or something. And she's really killing it. And it comes across. It's amazing. But on the studio album, it just does not translate. And so, yeah, Wrap It Up. Not one of my favorites.
You won't take it? You won't take it?
No, you're absolutely right. So yeah, Wrap It Up. I'm sorry. You can
It's
crucify
my
me.
least favorite. I mean, it's probably my least favorite track on the album, actually.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
If I had to, if I had to pick one, because it's not well placed. I mean, I will help the song out later on. We'll get to that.
There
I appreciate it because it's, it was a R&B song that you don't really expect to hear sort of synth, but it kind of harkens to Annie's love of Motown and R&B and soul, but it presents it in a kind of unconventional way. And yeah, I love the live version, even the live from Heaven, Sweet Dreams video album version.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the version you might be referring to is they performed it live at the Werchter Festival in Belgium.
Yes, that's the
Eli
one.
starts cursing at the audience.
Yeah.
And actually has several expletives, and it's really kind of dirty. And
That's great.
Wow.
Right. Mhm.
Well, wrap that up. I'll take it. Any other thoughts on this song?
I'll give some. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just said I love it. Go ahead.
All right, Nick.
I will say the same
Wrap
thing.
wrap it up.
I don't have many thoughts on it. I think that it probably would have served better as track 2, but it's an upbeat number. The keyboards sound amateurish, but in a very good way. My guess is that Dave Stewart probably handled some of it just because the synth bass is super simplistic. I think Annie Lennox was classically trained. I love the disco guitar on there. It's just added for no apparent reason, but it elevates it quite a bit. It's a fun track.
And you do have a guest vocalist, which for me,
Yeah.
I introduced Scritti Politti.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, of course.
So Green Gartside is the lead singer from Scritti Politti.
What was their hit song? I just know they're on Madonna's Who's That Girl soundtrack.
Had Perfect Way and
Yep.
Wood Bees.
Word Girl as well.
Well, moving on. All right. Back to the originals. I could give you a mirror to show you disappointment. Jimmy, your hand is up. Take it away.
Yes, because this is like one of my favorite tracks of all. I mean, I absolutely love everything about this song. The layered vocals at the end are just crazy. It just builds and builds. But I wanted a video for this song. I wanted it to have mirrors and like a mirror breaking, and there's Annie behind a mirror. So it's like images of Annie just like shattering throughout the video. I mean, when I heard it, I just envisioned these visuals that just never came to be. So, I wish somebody with AI could come in there and do something with it, because I think this song is brilliant. And I love everything about it.
For all the complaints about like synth pop, there's so much emotion in these vocals and in this song. Like, there's no doubt about it that she is feeling this, and it's amazing. Mark, your hand was up.
Well, I agree with what he was saying, and it's always amazed me. This is a B-side.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
it should have been a single. I
Yeah.
mean, how this wasn't a single, especially even a single after the two hits. Now, of course, we'll get the This Is the House and The Walk were singles before Leather Strange. So there were a lot of singles from the album. But how I Could Give You a Mirror, what ended up as a B-side, is insane to me. Now, of course, go back that as a kid, I was buying singles, not albums. So I had this killer great B-side that I could play from Sweet Dreams as well, but yeah, this is one of their best songs. I mean, and going back to what you said too, it has such a signature about Eurythmics. A lot of songs at the end just going crazy, all these crashing, banging, all this thing going on. And there's a great alternative version that the original, the B-side in the UK had an early version of it that is a totally different vibe. But really well said there.
The thing I'd like to say about this one is I defy you not to move when you hear this song.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm tapping my feet, I'm moving around. I mean, this is one of my favorite songs of Eurythmics as well.
I feel like this one is so signature. Like, who could really sing this but Annie Lennox? With as much feeling in his, you know what I mean? Like,
every song is like, it can only be those two people.
Yeah.
It can only be those two. And how rare is that? Like, I feel like these days, music is really interchangeable. But nobody, I couldn't hear anyone else singing this song.
And they shouldn't. No one should try.
No.
No, I agree.
You know what? I'll give one person permission, Marianne Faithfull. I feel like she can take a song and do like her own version, and that's a whole nother podcast. All right. Any other thoughts on Nick? Do you want to add some thoughts?
Yeah, it's definitely one of the strongest songs on the album. She does some fun vocal runs at the end. I was bopping my head, so that's quite the endorsement right there. In terms of all the songs from the Eurythmics I've listened to so far, it probably is in that upper echelon. So I'll see if it remains there.
All right.
You know what I love about this song? It's so amazing is the introduction. It comes in with just like that noise. Then they layer in another sound, and then they layer in another sound. And it's all so clear. You can see it just like building, and then that riff comes in, and then the whole song comes to a complete pause. And then it just takes off again, and it just goes into this crazy intenseness. And I remember when I was just a kid on my tape deck, rewinding back and back, time and time again to hear that introduction, because every sound is so clear. And it all creates this amazing energy. I love this song. It's absolutely incredible.
It's almost like a car speeding by, like that sound.
Right.
Yeah. And like Mark said, I cannot believe this was a B-side. It's amazing. Yeah.
I feel like go ahead. I was going to ask if they used any sampling devices on this song. I'm pretty sure that in some interviews I read that they actually did have, it wasn't a Fairlight, but they were able to kind of tap on an acoustic guitar case. They played on milk bottles on one song.
Yeah.
And Sweet Dreams.
Yes. Okay.
And you were speaking of covers. Do you know who covered it?
Who?
Live? Sarah McLachlan.
Oh.
And I looked it up on YouTube. I thought, is that because she was a huge fan back in the day, very early on.
I could hear her voice doing that range now that I think about it.
Look it up on YouTube. We can't.
I just learned, since we're on the Sarah McLachlan really quick, from Sharon, my goth friend. Sarah McLachlan, one of her first tracks is like on a goth track, and it's like really good, like a dance gothy track.
What is the name of that song? Because it haunts me.
Oh, I'll find it. I'll tell you in just like 1 second.
Just please let me know. I'm sorry to interrupt this broadcast.
I have it on a playlist.
But I literally have been wanting to know this for like 40 years. So, okay.
2 seconds. Hold on.
All right. Well, I could give you a mirror to show you disappointment. Such a freaking good song. And then the mood switches and It's very windy, desolate. And this album is there's so much mood on this album. And for something being electronic, anyone that says electronic music isn't emotional has not heard this album. The Walk, a weird choice for a single. And I didn't even know it was a single till maybe the internet. Because at the time, I remember what I was going to say. I feel like it was a disservice to them that they had the Touch album in the bag. Because I feel like this album could have had a lot longer legs if they didn't, put out Who's That Girl and Here Comes the Rain Again. They already had another masterpiece, in my opinion. I know we're jumping ahead, but in the wings. So, to their own disservice, because I feel like had Touch not been in the waiting area, maybe something like I Could Give You a Mirror could have been a huge hit. But anyway, we're on to The Walk. What do you all think of this song? Are those real trumpets? Is that real horns in this song?
Yes.
Okay. So this kind of reminded me of where they went a little bit deeper on Touch with the live horns. I love this song. What do you guys think?
I love it. It's probably one of my favorite. I mean, the whole album to me is I have a hard time comparing one song to the other as far as there's strengths in each one.
Sure.
But I love the fact that this song, they've done various iterations of it as well. Just like You Do a Mirror. And I mean, each one is equally as strong. I mean, I just love it lyrically as well. I mean, the album really does when I look at it now and just read the lyrics of the song of most of the songs, it's it is a a gut punch of of love and obsession and despair, and it's just the sort of wit of the lyrics is really, to me, kind of flawless.
All right, Jimmy, your hand is up.
Yeah, I think this is a great atmospheric track. And what I love about it the most is the way Annie does her own backup vocals to the lyrics, in a lower voice.
Oh.
And I just absolutely love the way she backs herself with those. And it's so seductive. Her voice in this, to me, is just so seductive, especially the lower backing vocals when you really isolate those.
Is she saying nothing better than the real thing or something like that, right? Okay, Lynn, your hand was up.
Oh no, isn't this the history of this song that Dave had the melody and Annie was up in Scotland kind of recovering from a breakdown and he played this on the phone to her? Isn't this the song?
I'm not sure, but that's
legend tells. I mean, I dreamed this, and that means I'm having very strange dreams. But no, the story is that Dave created this melody or wrote the melody and played this to Annie on the phone and beckoned her back to London with it, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a chorus. I mean, the verses are so smooth and so, kind of mellow, and then boom, the chorus, amazing.
And if you've not heard, I think most of us have, but maybe one of us maybe haven't, but the one of those alternative versions, Let's Just Close Our Eyes, being an alternative version of it, just a killer, totally different, but just amazing. Yeah. And I will say there is a live version from the Old Grey Whistle Test. Am I right on that? Where
I think so.
Is one of my all-time favorite performances, Eurythmics of all time. They're with a gospel choir. Yeah. It is an absolutely masterful performance on her part. Whoever's doing the grand piano, it's just what they could do at the time and what they did. That and the television performances in England at the time, thank God, because we didn't get those things in the U.S. and I don't know about other locations. But if you've not heard that live version,
is there a chat group for this group? Because if there is, and someone wants to drop those links, I would love to see them.
Yeah, and for all the other, there's like a Joni Mitchell Phonogenics chat. So if whoever wants in, just send me a message on Facebook, because that's where we'll drop all of our videos.
In this Eurythmics one, and if people would post the links to the ones that they've been talking about, they all sent. I'm not sure if I've heard some of them, because like I followed their music, but I never got like obsessed with like finding all the B-side. I mean, I've heard all the ones that are like on the remastered.
And that's the thing. There are so many missing from the remasters.
So this is my chance to hear them all finally. So
Mark, is what you're talking about the same as the Walk Part 2, or is that something different?
That's another one. And there are a couple of versions of the Walk Part 2, which is more of an instrumental. Am I right there on my mic?
Yeah.
But let's just close our eyes is a version of the Walk. My sense has always been that it was an early version of the Walk.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that. I don't have any proof of that, but I think it is, because it was a B-side on the Walk, right? On the 12-inch? Yeah.
I thought it was Love is a Stranger.
It might have been in different territories in different places.
Yeah, the Walk Part 2 is on the B-side of the 12-inch of the Walk.
And what is Let's Just Close Our Eyes? Is that on
Let's Just Close Our Eyes?
The Walk 12-inch, right?
That was on Love is a Stranger, I think,
Love
wasn't
is a Stranger? Really?
I think it was on the 12-inch, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So completely different. So completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heard, I mean, like within the last 4 or 5 years, I heard these DJs from London called Horse Meat Disco mixed Let's Just Close Our Eyes in one of their sets, and it was so amazing.
Oh.
I was like, where'd they pull this out of? Like, it was great.
I remember hearing Let's Just Close Our Eyes at the gym once in LA, and I just about dropped a weight on my head. I thought, I cannot believe I'm hearing this. And it sounded so good.
Wow.
It's really a unique, very unique sound. Amazing.
So, Nick, what did you think of the Walk?
I thought the verses were actually pretty weak, minus all of the coloring and the synth textures. I think that elevated quite a bit. There's a nice bell synth texture in particular that I really enjoy, but it's the synth bass that's super repetitive and I can't really get behind it, but it's redeemed almost entirely by the very strong chorus, to the point where I do now understand why it was released as a single. I don't think it did incredibly well. I think it just scraped into the top 100, and they didn't even bother to re-release it after the success of Sweet Dreams, but it's a fine enough song, middle of the road, I suppose. If you remove the verses, I think it's a very good song.
There was a
the Muted Triangle is also really goofy.
There was a music video, right, for this one?
Yes.
I think they uncovered one. Yeah.
Well, and there was Dave and Annie. It was Dave and Annie's kind of lost video for a long time.
Yeah.
Sophie Muller, who became famous for Savage videos, she was one of the people who helped with it. She was a college student. It never got released, and it was kind of lost. You can find it on YouTube.
Didn't Annie have the long black hair in that one, or am I imagining things?
Yes.
Yeah.
His long black hair.
Yeah.
All right. Well, does anyone need a break, or can we jump into side 2?
Can I just give a shout out to one of our family, Eurythmics family, Stephen Skelly, who made a Subway poster of the Walk. I know, a subject very dear to your heart, Mark. And he did this incredible job, and I'm just going to show it to you if you don't mind. Yeah.
Yes, please do.
So I hung it on the wall last night just to show you. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, wow.
So he made this from scans, And what's really cool is he's got the 7-inch single there and the Sweet Dreams album, and he's got this still from the Walk photo shoot, and I just think it's come up a treat. Yeah,
Amazing.
he did a great job. Yeah, so
Stephen is multi-talented.
fantastic and a great guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
so big shout out.
Perhaps he'll join us for one of these. He's welcome to join.
Okay.
I've begged him to be on a podcast before, and he refuses.
Oh,
I was just gonna add before we go on. Mike said he heard that song at the gym. Mike, you probably heard every song at the gym. So I'm just saying, every song is probably played.
Not that one, but yeah, I remember it. I remember that one.
I was one of the most bizarre times I've ever heard a Eurythmics B-side was my mother-in-law. She plays her Amazon music on her little Amazon device, and all of a sudden I heard "Baby's Gone Blue" coming from her.
Oh wow!
Wow.
Where, because she's listening to Earth, Wind and Fire and Whitney Houston and stuff, and all of a sudden I'm hearing, and it was like it fits really well with her, with her soul and R&B.
wow.
That's the B-side to Sweet Dreams.
All right. Well, the next song, you flip over the vinyl, and Sweet Dreams, one of the most legendary songs of all time. There's about 6 lines in the whole song, but I feel like this is a song that what percentage of the globe could sing this whole song? A great percentage.
Yeah.
I'm like Jeffrey. There's times where I'd be at an 80s night and this would be sandwiched between Come On Eileen and something. I'm like, oh God, I'm just burnt out on this song. But it's still a legendary song. It still sounds fresh. A lot of things get that 80s stain on it, and this doesn't. I think it's still, innovative. Annie's lyrics, her delivery, amazing. It's so hard to talk about this song because in a word that John said is overused, iconic. But if anything is iconic, it's the song Sweet Dreams, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to touch on this one? I don't even think I'm worthy.
I mean, it's perfection. The lyrics are great. The music is great. The video is great. Like you said, everyone in the world can sing it. There's no one that dislikes the song. The images are great. The perfection. I mean, if they only released this song and retired, they'd be like the best band ever.
Right.
I mean, it's one big hook. The entire song is a hook.
Mm-hmm.
There's no downtime in this song to be had. It is everything is important in this song, and I think it is perfection, literally.
The delivery is great. Her vocals are great. The music, everything.
I didn't like on the greatest hits how they kind of had an extended version where I felt, for some reason, I always felt like the drums were a little bit off the beat in that extended version.
That's the 12-inch version.
Is it?
Dance mix. Yeah, from the... Yeah.
Wait, say that again. It's cut out a little bit.
I was talking about the extended version on the greatest hits CD.
Right, but you were saying the name of the mix or something.
That's the original 12-inch.
Yeah.
Dance mix.
Yeah.
They don't even call it a dance mix. I mean, even on the 12-inch, they don't call it extended or dance or anything. It's just 4 minutes and 52 seconds or whatever it is.
Okay.
If you go back in the history of pop music, if Dave Stewart and Annie Lennox hadn't been so good and so talented and so different than everyone else, Sweet Dreams Are Made of This should have been a one-hit wonder because it had everything that a one-hit wonder often is. It had this great hook. It was, infectious, people, and so it could have so easily been a one-hit wonder, but they were so good at what they did that it defied that. But I always think, how easily it could have been.
It could have been a Mickey.
Yeah, it could have been. And there were a lot of those at the time.
Yeah.
I think great about its also its placement on the album, being the first track on the second side, or in the middle of the record, is that you have it coming in right after the walk, which is sort of trailing off, and then all of a sudden it's like basically a big like.
In the Power of Music video, do you hear that downbeat without seeing Annie's hand on the table? Like,
yeah. Oh.
Right.
And were cows in a music video ever more beautiful?
Every decision that was made on this track is like there was no wrong choices.
I mean, in the video when it goes to the crosshair, that is like wow. It's like whoa, they're really going for it.
Yeah. Mm. And we talked a lot about Annie's look. Let's not forget Dave's look with like the bird's nest, rat's hair. Like, what a great foil he was to Annie. Just this kind of the silent man in the background with the sunglasses.
Mm. I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, one of the things that was so, I think, just kind of groundbreaking also about the video is that not only do you have Annie presenting in this very like domineering, masculine presentation, but at the same time within the same video, when they go to the strings, you see them in this boat, and she's in this very feminine, red dress with like, the wig and stuff, and to a someone who's, like 13 years old in the 80s, it's like that is in and of itself is already kind of playing with gender, stereotypes and gender norms, and you're like wondering, is this the same person?
Yeah,
like, sure. All right, Nick, do you have any thoughts on Sweet Dreams?
It's a good song, obviously. I would probably take Love is a Stranger over this one. One thing that bothers me a little bit is the sound of the snare drum a little bit. Obviously, it's not organic. It was from Movement's drum computer, if I'm not mistaken. The crack, it doesn't really work well. I actually think that some of the instruments here do sound very dated and very much of the time here. A bit of a contrarian position, but it doesn't mean it's a bad song, but you could definitely track it down to 1982, 1983.
All right, further thoughts?
I think everything that can be said about Sweet Dreams has already been said. And
right.
There's that word, there we go, that word again, iconic. There's no other. It just encapsulates everything. It would probably be nothing else like it.
Top songs of the 80s, wouldn't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Top 50, if not top 20 of all these.
Definable moment, Yeah.
All right, go ahead. I was going to say that Rolling Stone actually put it on the greatest songs of all time list, I think in 2003. I checked the most recent edition, and it was omitted from that. So I would call it a bit of a snub, but it was their choice, I suppose.
That's interesting, because you would think it's so ubiquitous with everything now.
Definitely, yeah.
Can I show you something?
Yes, bring out the collectibles.
Oh.
So Sweet Dreams was issued in various colored vinyl around the world, and one of the rarest ones that I've managed to find is this one here. This is red 7-inch vinyl, and that was only pressed in El Salvador. 1983. So that's a real find. One of my little treasures. And it was also done on 12-inch in Mexico. So gold vinyl.
Okay.
Red vinyl.
Green vinyl. Red vinyl. And black vinyl as well. So I just love the fact that it was done in so many different reincarnations and collectible things.
Have you been collecting Eurythmics stuff since the beginning?
What's that?
Have you been collecting Eurythmics stuff since the beginning?
No, I came quite late to collecting. I started collecting with earnest around 1989 when I heard We Two Are One, and I knew the show was over. I just, so I've got to get in and get as much as I can. Yeah,
and you sure did.
And it's
Crazy.
it took 17 weeks for Sweet Dreams to get to number one. 17 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was actually surprised when learning that it never went to number one in the UK.
Yes.
You know, the US kind of, trumped the UK, in terms of number ones. And I was really surprised that nothing else went to number one before There Must Be an Angel.
Wasn't it Bonnie Tyler, Total Eclipse of the Heart, that was loggerheads with it at that time?
Oh, no, I know in the US they were up against the Police.
Every Breath You Take.
Oh.
Every breath you take. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, I love that. I love that damn Bonnie Tyler, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah.
I mean, thinking about Sweet Dreams and other songs kind of that within the same 1 or 2 year span, there's songs that are very evocative of it that have nothing to do with the song. But I remember, like, when I saw Eurythmics for the Touch Tour, that Australian band, what was, I've Got an Angel?
Real life.
Oh, Real Life.
Send me an angel.
Send Me an Angel, sorry, not Eurythmics. Yeah, they opened with them. And that song had a very, where I saw them in the US, they opened on their first leg of that tour. They, that single has very like hints of that similar sort of build, and then there was that song by Corey Hart from Canada.
Yes. Sunglasses at Night.
They kind of took a little bit of, license from that very, similar.
Yeah. Very similar.
Yeah, I was just going to say this song will live forever because of the remixes. I mean, this song will be remixed from when it was done till the end of time. They will still be remixing Sweet Dreams.
That hook's like the same as Robin S. Show Me Love. Like, it'll just go on and on.
I don't think I like any other version besides theirs. Is any other?
Well, no, I'm talking about the remixes.
But I'm just saying, are there any other, or like, covers and remixes? Are there any covers or remixes that are like amazing?
There are some amazing remixes if you like remix songs. I mean, there are tons of them.
The Nightmare mix.
Yeah, Danny Tenaglia, I think, did that one.
That's Dave Angel, I think.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
See, we gotta have our group chat. We gotta get our group chat going on.
That's your homework, Jeremy.
All right. Send me a message. I don't want to. I feel like another nightmare is being added to a group chat that you don't want to be added. So everyone send me a message who wants to be part of it.
Mute it, and then like you can look whenever. Like that's what I did.
All right. So moving on. This is like a Joni Mitchell level podcast because we're already an hour or two and we still have a few songs to go. I'm gonna make a controversial statement. We all had some disagreements about I've Got an Angel following Love is a Stranger, but I feel like Jennifer is the perfect way to follow Sweet Dreams. I've always loved the song Jennifer. I think it's sad. There's a lot of emotion there. It's just one verse repeated over and over, but it builds and builds and builds. It's about a song about someone drowning. In the concert video, they show a clip. I didn't realize there was a clip from the Tourist video, or not the Tourist, the video from In the Garden.
Yeah.
So I always wondered, like, what's this footage of Annie with longer red hair? But only recently, I realized they pulled it from an older Eurythmics video. So Jennifer's Underneath the Water. I'm surprised that this song never made a comeback. Like, it always kind of floundered as an album track that just the big fans know. Because I feel like it's... does anyone else here love this song as much as I do? Because I just think it's a beautiful song.
Well, it was a concluding song for the Sweet Dreams tour and Touch too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They always wanted to end on a more calm note, it seemed, at the end of their concerts. It's a great song, though. It's so atmospheric, or
yes,
better word.
I'm going to say something controversial. I don't love the second side of this record.
Really?
I'm kind of like, I can move on to the next record. But it's not to say I don't like it. It's just not because I like their other albums so much more. It's like I'd rather listen to those than some of these tracks, but I
So
listened to the album twice today and I enjoyed it both times.
I mean, I love this album beginning to end. Whereas there's other albums like Touch, I like the second side better than the first side. And same with Revenge. I like the second side better than the first side. Just there's to me like those are the songs that almost feel like, we put them on the second side because, you may not listen to this side. But I think those are some of the better.
All right. Any other thoughts on Jennifer? Nick, did you have some thoughts on this one?
Yes, I found it to be very atmospheric and brooding. It is a decent way to follow up Sweet Dreams. I mean, it's like I said with I think the song that followed up Love is a Stranger. When you have a pop song, I mean, there are a couple ways you could do so. One with another pop song, and another is to go in a complete different direction and kind of to have a palate cleanser. That was very effective in this regard. I'm not sure where else you would have put it. I think for this sort of song, it works better on the second half of the album, so they made a good choice in that regard.
I love her like ooh vocals, like the background layers that she has, and then the underneath the water. I just think, ooh, it's haunting.
Oh.
And it played into her public image at the time with the orange hair. Like, was she Jennifer?
Well, yeah, which came I was just reading the lyrics and I was kind of like, well, which came first? Jennifer or the orange hair?
Right.
Yeah, that's a good one.
If you look at the garden, she had that brassy red, hair already. So
But her eyes aren't green.
That's right.
These eyes are definitely blue, but yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts on this one?
would it be the first song that they released that's a woman's name? I think because they have a lot.
Belinda.
Right.
Belinda.
Yeah, they had Belinda first.
Belinda.
Mhm.
Right.
Mm. Mm.
But we had to keep a running list of all the names as we continue through this podcast. I thought of Belinda, Sylvia, Jennifer,
Julia.
Adrian's not distinctly about male or female, although I think it was about a male.
Right. All right. Well, get out your Google Translator because esta es la casa. This is the house. What a weird damn song this is. I just remember my mom knew all the lyrics. This is the house. This is the hill. And when I just got hit by a hurricane, like my apartment's on the top of a hill. So I was singing a song. I'm like, I'm not in a flood zone. This is the house. This is the hill. There's definitely a sinister eeriness about the song. There's some whistling, some dissonant synthesizer, some slap bass, some Spanish, some. I mean, everything's here. Who wants to start this song off?
Mike does.
Who is it that sings the intro? Is it Annie or somebody else?
It's
It doesn't sound
No,
like
that's Annie. I would think.
According,
I work for I'm on the West Coast. I work for a largely Hispanic company that healthcare that supports the migrant community in Oregon. And I don't speak much Spanish. I speak a little, un poquito, but I will pull phrases out and from this to impress my coworkers, like I'm learning Spanish at work. I did say that. What is that? Es algo chiquitito, and they were like, oh, "She's learning. She's learning."
The only Spanish I know, this is the house in the chorus of Who's That Girl?
Yeah.
By Madonna. The Madonna was.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to throw something out at you. According to Adam Williams, who was an early co-producer on Sweet Dreams and later on Be Yourself Tonight, he did engineering. He said it's not Annie.
right.
Spanish.
It doesn't sound like her. It really doesn't. It sounds like
I
someone
don't think
else.
it does.
I have to go back. I don't think it was his girlfriend, but I think it might have been the girlfriend of a friend. But I think it was one of those things where Dave and Annie would bringing in people.
Yeah.
Oh.
Whoever, because I always thought it was Annie. And he said,
So did I.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did too.
Of course, she on live, she does it. she does it live.
I saw it was her doing one of her voices, one of her
Yeah.
many characters, and being kind of weird.
Isn't this one of your favorite songs, Mike?
It's not one of my top favorites, but I love the song. I just love, and I especially love the extended version. I mean, it's got a few, not massively extended, but it's got a few interesting, more little notes and quirky noises on the 12-inch single. I've always loved the artwork. I find the picture.
It's just sinister and mysterious.
I mean, like she's being chased through a tunnel or a hallway. Wave in the background. And I just think it's such a great image. It's very thought-provoking. And yeah, I remember I made you that poster, Mark, of this.
Yes, you did.
Great big, which I just happen to have here, but I won't show it off. But yeah, it's a great image. I love the whole song. And I think the live version as well on Live from Heaven is just an incredible way to kick off that concert.
Yes.
The production is it's incredible. It's something out of the box. I love it. I know it doesn't sit well with a lot of other listeners because it's so unique, but for me, of course, I'm sold. I love it.
I think I told you this in the last podcast, but when I was a kid, I used to pretend I was one of the backup, like I put on a wig that was like, I used to pretend I was one of the backup singers for the Heaven concert.
The Croquettes.
Yeah. What was her name? Like Susie O. List or something? I don't know. I'm pulling that out of like way 40 years ago. But any other thoughts on This Is the House before we say adios to it? Nick, what did you think of this one?
It's a fascinating choice for the lead single off the album, but I think that's simply by extension of this being one of the first songs they developed for the album. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this and Love is a Stranger were recorded very early on, maybe 7-8 months before they were actually included on the album. And I found the Spanish dialogue to be an interesting choice. I'm not sure if it worked well in their favor. It commits a big faux pas of including spoken words. So
you hate the spoken word
points. Yes, not very good.
Oh yeah, I forgot that. Yes.
That will be a recurring theme. I have no idea if they ever incorporate spoken word into any of their additional songs, so I'll be
They
surprised.
sure do, and you better not put down that song. It's coming up in a few albums. That's
Yeah.
I'm dreaming like a Texan girl, motherfuckers.
Oh. But that's like an entire spoken word song, pretty much.
Right. Oh my god, one of my favorite songs of all. We're jumping way ahead.
Yeah, we'll get there.
We'll get there.
I mean, This Is the House. I'm just looking at the lyrics again to it while we're chatting, and I've been watching a lot of horror for Halloween or just because I like horror movies, and I'm like, this could be like a storyboard for a really creepy, cryptic folk horror film. If just the lyrics themselves, like it's very evocative of something. But when I think about it in terms of like whatever she was writing about, you know, it brings to mind like, you know, some sort of chaotic, dysfunctional household.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and even with the descriptiveness of the lyrics, you know, in the images that it conjures up, like there's still so much of like a mystery about them, you know. I mean, just as much as there is with a song like I've Got an Angel, which has, you know, 5 or 6 lines to it, like there's something very it is ethereal, even though this is a much faster kind of pop song. It still is very I haven't introspected on this album in such a long time that it's really, I love it.
I always grouped side one in this album and felt like the songs partnered with side two. Like, you know, Love is a Stranger was the hit along with Sweet Dreams. I've Got an Angel and Jennifer each had like 2 lines in it. Wrap It Up and This Is the House are both kind of bops. And now we're moving on to I Could Give You a Mirror with Somebody Told Me, which is another like deep bass, a chaotic ending. And then even Walk with City Doesn't Sleep are chill ways. So I feel like side 1 and side 2 were kind of mirrors to each other in a way.
That's interesting. Yeah, I see that. Yep.
Somebody told me something about you. What'd you guys think of this one?
Love everything about it. It is like one of my favorites again. I mean, I keep saying it's a favorite, but this one is so menacing, and it's I just love everything about it. I think it's great.
That bass note it starts out on, like, it just cuts right in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It seems weird to me that, like, with Sweet Dreams and Love is a Stranger being so polished and some of these other songs just being so experimental, it's like what was going through their head? Like, did they think Love is a Stranger and Sweet Dreams were experimental? Because they sound so pop, and then these other songs sound so weird. Like, not weird, but
they're weird.
Unconventional.
Unconventional. There you go.
And I wonder if in their minds they separated Sweet Dreams and Stranger, or if they just grouped them all together. Because I grouped them differently because they're such big hits, and
yeah, they're so like, there's some are so polished and some are just so like left field, But I like that. That's one of the things that as a new fan to Eurythmics in this album, I was like, holy shit, they're so interesting because they just there's like a balloon that lets the air out. They just flies all over the place.
Yeah.
But it all works. It really works.
And then by the time they got to Touch, they pretty much just like polished up and became like a pop band. Like very less experimental. It's interesting the direction that their career went.
Right, it really is.
And then even to like Annie Lennox's solo stuff, where it's so mature and like not super experimental,
Right, and even bordered on adult contemporary sometimes. I felt like.
Yeah.
The layers of this I loved. I mean, there were so many layers to it, and then when they repeat the first verse a second time with the male voice echoing what she's saying.
Oh yeah.
And there's a great alternative early version of this, not a studio version, right? It's just a live, very, 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 very different version of this song. So So what, John?
I said it's much more stripped down, kind of like that. I Could Give You a Mirror B-side.
Yes, absolutely. That they went back to some of the, it's just so fascinating to see what they were doing, and that I think they literally were. They just kept experimenting because nothing was happening.
Right.
Nothing was requiring their attention. So they just kept playing with all these songs and coming up with these incredible versions, which is great to go back and get, because you don't get that later on. As their career went on, the demands on them were so heavy. So you don't get all these experimental different versions and the way that they recorded. So we're very, very lucky about and this is a great there are a lot of great live versions of this from the Sweet Dreams tour. She's just screaming at the end of it, oh well, it's so good.
There is that same quality of there being this sort of repetitive chant, like mantra, like kind of quality, where she's oh well.
Mark, I think that version you're talking about was live at the BBC with Kid Jensen in 1982. So I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. It's a beautiful version. Very melodic.
Yeah.
And even though she doesn't say the word angel, there's still the connotation of halos and saints and.
Yeah, true. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it is. It's a great song. And if you listen to the track on the remasters on vinyl, it sounds like every sound on that track has been put through a dishwasher and it's all sparkly clean. You can hear
yeah, you're right.
Sound.
I would say
Amazing.
The 2018.
That's right. Yeah, it's incredible. Really, really does it justice. Yeah.
It is. It's one of the best ones, isn't it? You get
Really
so much more from it.
I noticed that today when I listened to it.
Yeah.
Does anyone think that Paint a Rumor is a follow-up to Somebody Told Me? I've always kind of thought that on the next album.
Could be for sure.
I will listen to it with that in mind.
Yeah.
It's just the theming, I guess. The theming.
Yeah.
I remember discovering a not so great, in my opinion, cover of this Roger Daltrey from the
Oh
Who.
goodness.
That's right. That's right. I forgot that.
I think I've only listened to it maybe twice on purpose.
I know we're jumping ahead, but now when I was a kid, I always pretended I was one of those backup singers from the concert when I listened to Paint a Rumor and did the backup parts.
With the
All right, Nick, what did you think of Somebody Told Me?
It's very minimalist, experimental. You could definitely tell that for a bunch of these songs that they were working with a very limited setup. I think it was recorded almost exclusively through 8-track as opposed to 16 or even 32-track, and it works to this song's advantage quite a bit. The one part I don't like, the chant of "Oh well, oh well." I just find it to be an unnecessary addition, and I think that Fluid Mac did "Oh well" much better 13 years prior.
Well.
Oh well. No.
My Aunt Joni, whenever she says something like really bitchy about somebody, then she goes, "Oh well."
Fun fact about This Is the House. It was released in the Philippines as a single, and the B-side is The Walk. And it was also released as a single in Australia, and the B-side is Never Gonna Cry Again. So that's, I'm wondering if they were trying to promote Eurythmics in that part of the world, or it was just an independent record label decision. But it's like a double A-side single. Interesting.
All right, so the album wraps up with a song, "The City Never Sleeps." There's the version on the CD is a little bit longer because he has the train sound, right? And Dave's saying something backwards or something. But it's interesting because a lot of these songs have peaks and valleys. You know, they build, but this is another one of the ones that's just kind of, it's just chill. It's very atmospheric, and it does remind me of the city late at night. Jimmy.
Yeah, well, my notes say that this city never sleeps, but this song does.
Oh,
But I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I love the song. I love it. I think it's a solid album track. And, you know, as a closure to a masterpiece, this is the way you end a record, because it is smooth and it's just a very peaceful and soothing sound after a lot of what we've heard. So I love it. It's an album track and closer.
Well, even if you didn't, I guess it's just a feeling. All right. So who wants?
I was gonna. Oh,
go ahead, Lynn.
I started. The first thing I said was, "Love is a Stranger" is perfection. This song is perfection to me as well. We play this most weekends very loud. Oh, look at that! Woo! In the house. And I was in London for a long time, and I used to take the Chalk Farm tube just to think about Dave recording it. But to me, because I lived in New York for a long time, and it just captures the isolation and the loneliness and the anonymity of living in a city perfectly to me.
Yeah.
I love it. It's great. Okay.
All right.
The gospel version on the Sweet Dreams, the video album, where they perform it with the gospel choir, is also so wonderfully, so great. Again, going back to that gospel version of The Walk that they did, just they were doing things that no one else at the time would have thought about doing. No pop group would have ever thought about, hey, let's perform with some gospel choirs. I mean, they were really musicians, and they did so many things that I just find amazing, and it worked brilliantly every time.
I was trying to think of other people that did gospel choirs. I can't think of any before. Shortly after was I Want to Know What Love Is, right? Did Foreigner copy them?
Yeah, and if they did, they were using it in a totally different way,
Right. Yeah, for sure.
almost a cliche way.
Yeah, I'd agree.
But you know,
That
yeah.
live version with the choir is equally like haunting as the album version in a different way.
Mhm.
I thought it was mesmerizing.
Wasn't this a hugely popular song because of the movie Nine and a Half, not Nine and a Half Weeks? Is that right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So this was a very well-known song to the public in a different way.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else?
This was a lot of the Sweet Dreams songs disappeared in their later concert sets. Even Love is a Stranger wasn't performed on the Revenge tour, which makes no sense to me.
Wow.
So let's talk about that really, really, really quickly. That the Love is a Stranger was perfect for the Revenge tour, and how they decided not to include it on this on that tour that was all about leather and lace, and I'll never figure that out, because I think it would have been perfect on that tour. But anyway, the point of this was Dave and Annie in their 2000 sort of duo summer tour that they did before Annie hurt her back. If you've ever seen it, they're both in silver outfits.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
But they performed This City Never Sleeps on that.
Yeah.
So they brought this song that hadn't been performed in years back.
Which
so cool. To
was
what?
it for We Tour One?
No, it was a very short tour after the Peace tour that just Dave and Annie did. It was sort of like a summer tour with maybe other groups or something. I'm not really sure. Rock in the Park. Look up Rock something.
They did that, and then they performed in Seattle.
Yeah.
At that museum.
Yeah. So, but they did they did some shows in Italy and different places, and I think it's supposed to go on longer.
I remember this.
But Annie hurt her back
Uh-huh.
and couldn't go on or something. But they did. It was just them with sort of backing tracks and Dave's guitar, in front of big audiences and stuff. But it's just interesting that they brought this particular song back, because I think it works so well. As a great performance song. But
So Nick, go ahead.
I was gonna say, did anyone try to play the vinyl backwards once they?
Yes.
Because the original pressing didn't have the extended. It wasn't until they did the vinyl reissue, right?
No, the original vinyl does have that voice on it.
The lead out.
Yep. Yep.
It may just be more clear on the vinyl remaster.
It wasn't on the CD then.
No, it wasn't on the CD, but the original vinyl has got that little hidden message. And I think I can remember what it actually says to my ears. Because I went like this, many times going, what's he saying? And I think it's Dave just having a laugh.
Right.
And it's something like, oh, I've enjoyed making that there record. Really, brilliant. And that's it.
Is it on this early CD, the original pressing in the US?
No, I don't know.
It wasn't until they did the box set reissues.
Okay, so I had to listen to them back because I have both of them.
Yeah.
But it's nothing sinister. It's not like let's all worship Satan and all that stuff. It's just Dave having a laugh.
I know.
The PMRC wouldn't have been after him. Nick, what did you think of this song?
So this is actually one of the songs on the album that I was familiar with prior to listening to it in its entirety, believe it or not. I have no idea how I listened to it. I probably was just putting on the Eurythmics on shuffle and came up, and I enjoyed it instantly on its first listen. So I put it in a few playlists here and there, and it's a wonderful way to close out the album. It's kind of chugging along at a very slow pace. It takes its time. has one of the longer run times, I think, on the album, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. So it navigates that fine line very well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's just do a general discussion about the B-sides. We don't have to go from, one by one. But what are some of everyone's favorites? What should people look up? What should have been on the album? I know that on the box set, on the reissues, there's 3 or 4 of them, but then there were some that have not been reissued and that we presume might be lost, the original masters. So who wants to start a little discussion on the B-sides?
I like the Satellite of Love.
Yeah, Satellite of Love. Yeah.
And I know there's a live version from, I don't know what it's from, but there's a live version that's better than the studio version.
That's from the Heaven concert, isn't it?
Probably, which I need to listen to the rest of that thing because obviously.
Oh, it's legendary.
All you guys singing the praises of it make me go, fuck, I'm missing out.
I mean, it was on HBO, I think, at the time, and I just remember being a kid watching it over and over and over again.
Yeah, any version of Satellite of Love that they did is perfection. Yeah.
But that one's a little bit faster, isn't it? The live, it just kicks in faster and stays there, doesn't it? From what I remember.
It gets like crazy at the end, I think, or something.
It was included on this cassette tape on the giveaway.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The studio version.
Yeah.
John, I want to show you this. This is the cassette tape you sent me in the post, like 24 years ago. This was the first time I ever heard Satellite of Love. So thank you.
Oh, cool. You know what's weird? You know how I found those? It was from scouring Goldmine magazine, like looking, and I found it was a store in, I want to say they were in Boston, and they had 8 copies of it.
Oh my God.
All without the J card.
Yeah.
But I think honestly, paid like, I don't know, maybe $5 or $8 a piece for them. But
yeah,
I ended up I still have 1 or 2 copies. That one to you, I think Eric Gustin may have gotten one. And then
I remember, at the time you were sending
one this woman who worked for RCA, because I was a really persistent fan. I discovered that you could look up RCA records in the yellow pages. I started calling and writing RCA because back in the day, all the major labels had they had offices in major cities, metropolitan cities. So they had an office in Atlanta, and I would contact them, and I spoke to this woman, Robin, and she sent me press kits and all kinds of stuff.
Wow.
And
been there, done that.
But what's weird is years later, I'm talking about 10 years or more than 10 years later, I worked as a buyer for Tower Records, and she ended up being one of my sales reps for not even RCA anymore. She worked for a different company, but I ended up sending her a copy of that just because she, sent me, even the promo, the live album from Revenge, and she would keep me. That was the first CD I ever got, was that Revenge promo CD. Was before I even had a CD player. But
well, thank you. I've still got it.
Of course, yeah.
Very dear to my heart. Thank you.
I wonder if mine even play anymore.
I know. I have no idea, but I'm keeping them anyway.
Well, that's a good example of things that weren't, Satellite of Love, thank God, made the remasters.
Yes.
But there's an Angel dub, a dub version, got an Angel. The Invisible Hands, which was the original idea to be the title track for the Sweet Dreams album. And what's the other one? You've got it.
Step on the Beast.
Step on the Beast, which is a second version of Step on the Beast, right? There are 2 versions. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So that little cassette, that is brilliant.
Yes.
A great little, and that it was somehow packaged, wow, just wow.
It was given away free.
Given away free. Wow. Yeah, it's insane.
Right by your side.
From what I understand, the ones without the J card may have been ones that were given away promotionally. Like, I don't know. Back when we were collecting, I mean, how many they would say how many copies were made? Maybe like 2,000 copies of that set.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how true or not. And there's something weird, probably on your copy, because all of the ones I had a label pasted over the label, pasted over the printed label. Yet they still misspelled their name.
Yeah, they still got it wrong. They still got it wrong. That's the best part.
How did they spell it?
Without the
There's no T.
Eurythmics. All right. Other songs on the reissue: "Home Is Where the Heart Is," "Monkey Monkey," "Baby's Gone Blue." There's a remix of "Sweet Dreams" and "Love Is a Stranger," and then of course "Satellite of Love." Were these all songs that were considered for the album at some point, and they just chose to keep them as B-sides?
No, the Haunt remix is from the greatest hits when they re-released versions of "Love Is a Stranger" and "Sweet Dreams."
Oh, yeah, that's right.
At the time, it was cool to have something new, but now, the Hot remix, I think, no, thank you.
Not so hot.
Too much.
No.
The lukewarm remix.
Yeah.
Well,
perfection. Yeah.
And so
shout out to Monkey Monkey. That's one of my favorites. I think that the album as a whole, I don't think it had any fillers, so it would have been difficult to put any of these B-sides on the album, but you probably could have fit that in. I have a soft spot for instrumentals, and that runs contrary to my dislike for spoken words, so I suppose that dichotomy goes hand in hand.
So that means you're going to like some of those early Fleetwood Mac albums, because there's some great instrumentals.
Oh, terrific. Yeah, absolutely. Fighting for Madge.
Yep.
We'll get to that.
I love the B-side. I mean, This Is the House 12-inch. I love the extended version, and I love the B-sides because they're so, they're live, but they're also, they're so the recordings are so well done. And I think my favorite part about those B-sides are those kind of strange intros that you get to, I'm drawing a blank on the song, like "Never Gonna Cry Again," but like
"Take Me to Your Heart."
Yeah, like those, there's even live they were doing a lot of experimentation with these sort of bizarre sounding like radio frequencies, and those are the things that to me, like, those are the things I really love about Dave and Annie the most, is like those strange, quirky because discovering those things kind of led me down paths of other music that I've discovered, and the fact that they worked with Connie Plank on their first record, and then you jump forward to Touch, and they worked with the horn section from Can, who was connected to Connie Plank, and I really appreciate that spark of experimentation that they had.
Isn't it interesting the trajectory that their career took? Because this whole era, it had its hits, but then for as slick as some of the stuff was, some of it was just as out there. And I wish they kind of would have retained that a little bit further into the discography. But it is what it is. There's great songs throughout the whole thing. All right, we just talked about the Sweet Dreams album for 2.5 hours. Twas a great podcast. Any parting thoughts before we do our rating? Yeah, Mark.
I want to say that I think the most profound thing that was said tonight, that was Nick saying, "Yeah, Sweet Dreams is good." Because I really do love, Nick, listening to you talk about music and your expertise on instruments. I think it's great.
It's great having you. Yeah.
But I did really chuckle. Yeah, Sweet Dreams. Yeah, it's good.
Oh, well, these podcasts are definitely a special thing. We've only been on 2 episodes together, but I feel like I've known you all my whole life, and we're gonna know each other forever now, because we're bonded by this music that has touched us.
And the chat group you're gonna create for all of us.
Yes, that's right. You guys message me and tell me if you're, because this has touched us in the deepest places. many that have not been touched in a long time. So the Sweet Dreams album, scale of 1 to 10. Let's go. I'm going to just call on from my upper left. Mike, you're first. Where would you rank Sweet Dreams, the album? Scale
9 out of 10. 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10.
It loses a point because of Wrap It Up.
Oh.
Sorry.
He won't take it. Jimmy, I'm saving you for last. That's a tradition that continues through whatever podcast you're on. Okay. Jeffrey Dicker, Sweet Dreams, the album.
I'm gonna give it a 7, and only because the flow to me is just off. But I mean, because Love Is a Stranger by itself is a perfect 10, and Sweet Dreams the song is a perfect 10, so the album really is a perfect 10, but it's not just my personal ranking is gonna be a 7.
All right, John.
I'm giving it a 9.9.
Ooh.
Because to me, it's very influential and impactful for many different reasons. So, yeah, it's a near 10.
All right, Lynn.
I'm going to echo John. I'd say a 9.95.
Ooh.
It's nearly perfect. It's really hard to do 10 this early on because I feel I'm going to be going really high later on, but 9.95. Iconic.
All right, Mark.
It's a 10. I'm giving it a 10. And quite frankly, I love Mike to death, but I mean that he doesn't like Wrap It Up. I'm just not think we can invite him back.
Oh,
yeah.
So you can stay on the podcast if you send me that Soul Dad promo CD.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a 10. Yep.
All right, Nick. What do you rank this one?
I need to let an album marinate if I give it anything above a 9. So despite absolutely loving it, I'm probably going with an 8.7 for the time being, but I'm allowing some room for growth, I should say, in the future. So it could very well rise above that threshold that I established. That might very well be arbitrary, but I have standards.
Oh.
Marinate.
We love a man that marinates with standards, don't we? All right. Well, I am gonna go with Mark. I give the album 10. Because if I took a suitcase of my life and the albums that changed my life and that made a difference, this album would be in there. I love Wrap It Up.
Every podcast, you say that every album.
I do. I give a lot of 10s.
It's a big suitcase.
It's a big suitcase. You know what?
Yeah.
I'm lugging around a lot of baggage in a lot of different ways. And I can handle it. I do give 10 to like almost every album, but that's, I just love this music so much. I think this album just changed pop culture. How many things can have such an impact on the way gender's looked at? The way, the total, maybe some of the songs aren't legendary, but I never have skipped a song on Sweet Dreams. And I do feel like some of the later albums did get a little bit spotty for me. So this is one that I just listen to from beginning to end and never want to skip a song. So wrap that motherfucker up. I'll take it. All right. Jimmy, lay it on us.
Okay, I'm going to give the album as is a 9.5, but I'm going to make it a 10.
Oh.
And I challenge you to listen to the tracks in this order, and I give this order a 10. Just started off with Sweet Dreams, just because the intro that is so solid. Follow it by Love Is a Stranger, I Could Give You a Mirror, Somebody Told Me, Jennifer, The Walk, I've Got an Angel, Wrap It Up, This Is the House, and This City Never Sleeps.
I can't even wrap my head around that alternate.
I like your order.
I'm serious. If you listen to it in that order, some of the songs that sound weakish on where they're placed, they make a lot of sense in this version, just in my opinion. So,
when you're talking about
can you drop that order and somehow?
Oh, if we do a chat, yeah, I'll do that.
When when you were talking about placement earlier, I thought to myself, if Love is a Stranger and Sweet Dreams were back to back, you get it out of the way, and then you can enjoy the rest of the record without
Exactly.
such high standards.
See, I like the way it is because, like I said, how the two sides kind of mirror each other. But I will give your order a chance. Yes, I will. Well, friends, I was so hoping my electricity would be turned back on, and I enjoyed this so much that even turned back on a little bit. Any final thoughts on Sweet Dreams?
Now I'm about to have sweet dreams.
I am too. I have to be at work at 7 a.m. So I have a proposition that we meet next month and we talk about the album Touch, track by track. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks to my Patreon subscribers. Thanks to the YouTube. Thanks to Dave and Annie for making such fucking amazing 10-star music.
Absolutely.
And thanks to you all for being my friend and for putting up with my zany bullshit. And I had one final thank you, but I can't remember it. So those who would like to be in the Eurythmics Phonogenics group chat, send me a message, and I will see you all in November when the rain comes again and we paint a rumor together. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.